Hi scholars, happy Tuesday. Today we're going to be reading Unit 9, Chapter 4. The chapter is titled Who's Hiding Now? So go ahead and click the digital reader in the description below and also open up your packet to page 123 so we can work on our notes together. Take a moment, get those ready before we move on. Before we begin, make sure that you've already taken your iReady math diagnostic today. This Tuesday, your final math diagnostic on iReady is going to be posted. So just like how you had language arts yesterday, I want you to go ahead and get that one done first. After that, you can go back and do language arts or social studies, but make sure you get that math diagnostic done first. It's super important. It shows how much you've grown since the beginning and middle of the year. Next, have your packet and reader out and ready. And lastly, watch till the very end for an extra challenge for some scholars to earn some extra Grow Our Team points. Looking at this week, yesterday you had your language arts iReady diagnostic. Today we're going to be doing Chapter 4. Tomorrow's Chapter 5. And then Thursday and Friday we're splitting up Chapter 6 into a Part 1 and Part 2. Your packet page numbers are right there, and they're also on the very cover of your packets in general. Take a moment, review before we move on. Your do now for today is similar to last week's, so you're going to combine the following short sentences using commas and transition words where appropriate. So our three tiny sentences that we're going to combine into one large one. The fossils were fragmented. The fossils were fragmented. They were from an unknown animal. They were from an unknown animal. And lastly, the fossils had to be clean. So you're going to take those three, combine them, using most likely a comma or transition words. Those are transition words like and, but, also. You're not really going to use an exclamation point or question mark, but I do have some other examples on the right-hand side here of other punctuation you can use to help you combine all three. Make sure you read it back to yourself afterwards so it sounds grammatically correct. It's pretty easy to pick up our caveman English if it doesn't sound correct. Taking a moment to look at our objective. I can integrate. Integrate, it means combine. We're integrating, so we're combining. I can integrate multiple sources to explain compounds and elements. When we say multiple sources, we usually means from more than one place. So that might be a textbook, it might be an article, it might be a video. So we're going to combine different information to explain what compounds and elements are. Some of the vocab we're going to see today. Prod, a verb to poke something. So if you're prodding something, you might be poking at it. Condense, another verb. Change from a gas to a liquid. So this is when you see clouds condensing together. They're changing from a gaseous state to a liquid state when it falls as rain. Molecules, a noun. It's a group of atoms bonded together. Molecules, remember yesterday, atoms we said are the smallest base unit of an element, and it still has it still is like that element. So an atom is made up of a molecule or groups of these atoms bound together. And then lastly, precisely, it's an adverb. It's an adjective to describe a verb. So it's doing something with complete accuracy. Precisely. I precisely shot the ball. Now let's do some word work. Practice writing a sentence of your own. What time is it now precisely? It is now precisely ... And what might you want to prod before touching it with your bare hands? What might you want to prod before touching it with your bare hands? So here's a funny story. Mr. Sheehan used to live in Arizona, and we always, whenever we take our shoes off, or if you ever had anything outside, before you grabbed it, you would always want to shake it or kick it because you didn't know if a tarantula or a scorpion or a snake had crawled in there. Multiple times, Mr. Sheehan remembers going to like the pool where we lived growing up, and then we'd have to like shake out our shoes before we left. And one time there was actually a scorpion in there because they're very common. So you'd always want to prod it before touching it with your bare hands. Today we're going to alternate, and I'm going to have you read Chapter 4 independently. It's from pages 22 to 28. The big question I want you to think about before we come back together and answer some questions. What is the difference between gold and fool's gold? I have a picture right here of fool's gold or pyrite and normal gold, as well as their molecular combinations. Remember, a molecule are how atoms are bound together. So you can see right there. But while you read, what's the difference between fool's gold and gold? And why might we even call it fool's gold in the first place? You're going to be reading pages 22 to 28. After that, we're going to come back together and we're going to read and we're going to work together on the next few questions and the remainder of our packet. Go ahead and take a moment to pause the video now and pick up chapter 4. So now that you've wrapped up chapter 4, you should be able to answer our big question. What's the difference between gold and fool's gold? The difference is one is a compound and one is not. So gold itself is made up of the element gold. It's just gold atoms bonded with one another. But in something like fool's gold or iron pyrite, there's different elements that make it up. For example, in iron pyrite, there's sulfur and there's iron. So that's not gold. It just looks like it has the appearance of gold. That's how it got the name fool's gold. So on the next page in your packet, we have number 1 on your activity page. I'm going to read the paragraph to you, and then we're going to work together to answer this first question. Oh. There it is. Number 1. He cleared his throat and suddenly turned to Tess. I was wondering, Tess, just what is the difference between gold and fool's gold? Amy thought Felix had just asked the question to turn her attention away from him. Tess didn't notice, though, and was happy to answer it. Remember that atoms are the smallest particles of matter. The thing is, you can't find many atoms all by themselves in nature. Atoms typically join together, or bond, as chemists say, in groups of 2 or more to form molecules. Some molecules are just made up of atoms of just a single element. A lump of gold, example, would be made up of many gold atoms bonded together. So like we just said, you're not going to go around just finding gold atoms floating on their own. Gold bonds together. So when you have a lump of gold, it's just pure gold atoms all bonded together. How are atoms usually found in nature? So we know they're not found loosely on their own. You should be filling in bound in groups of 2 or more as molecules. So how are atoms usually found in nature? They're bound in groups of 2 or more as molecules. Bound in groups of two or more as molecules. So atoms are found as molecules in nature. Next up, number 2. Most molecules, though, are combinations of 2 or more different elements. A molecule of iron pyrite, for example, has 2 atoms of the element sulfur bonded to an atom of the element iron. Molecules that contain atoms of 2 or more different elements are called compounds. Water is an example of a compound. A water molecule is made up of 2 atoms of the element hydrogen and 1 atom of the element oxygen. So that's why when we write it out, you might hear it as H2O. H, 1H, 1 hydrogen, 2O, 2 oxygens bonded together. So the iron pyrite, or the fool's gold, is similar to that. It's a compound because it has 2 sulfur and 1 iron. While something like gold is just pure gold. There's nothing else. Our question, are molecules usually made up of 1 element let me start over. Are molecules usually made up of 1 element or more than 1? What are molecules made up of more than 1 element called? So think of this. Gold just has 1 in it. So are molecules usually made up of 1 element or more than 1? What are molecules made up of? What are molecules made up of more than 1 element called? We should be filling in. Molecules are made up of more than 1 element, and then they are called compounds. You need to write down more than 1, compounds. Take a moment, fill it in before we move on to 3 and 4. Next up for 3 and 4. Number 3. Is this why people sometimes call water H2O? Daria asked. Precisely, Tess replied. There are millions of molecules that are compounds, and you can find them everywhere and in everything. This sandstone rock we're scratching at is made of molecules that are compounds. So are these dinosaur fossils, and the tools we're using. Each one of you is a walking, talking collection of different compounds that make up your bones, muscles, nerves, and everything else in your body. So something like gold that's all 1 element is incredibly rare. Just like how most things in the world are made up of a bunch of tiny different things, so are our bodies and so are our molecules. Not everything is just clear cut and just a single element. The world would be way too simple that way. So why is Daria precisely right? The term H2O implies 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom, which is the atomic makeup of a water molecule. So Daria is right because she has it exactly in her head. She knows that H2O is 1 hydrogen and 2 oxygen. Filling that in. And then number 4, Dr. Forrester suddenly spoke up. Okay, here's a riddle. Why are all compounds molecules, but all molecules are not compounds? Because some molecules are made up of atoms of only one element, Matt exclaimed triumphantly. Exactly right, Dr. Forster said. So, why is Matt exactly right? Well, that's because, as we talked about, the differences between compounds and non-compounds. Molecules that are made up of more than one, molecules that are made up of atoms of only one element are not called compounds. This lump of gold is not a compound; it's just one element. But something like iron pyrite or fool's gold, these are made up of bonded atoms, two sulfur and one iron, and they're molecules. So that's the big takeaway of today, that compounds are bonded atoms, and that other things can just be a single element.
Lastly, for the very end, you're going to have a SPO, single paragraph outline. All you're doing is actually summarizing our last few chapters. So in our narrative so far, dot, dot, dot is your topic sentence. What has happened so far? Give me a broad one sentence. In our narrative so far, you can talk about some kids went to a camp, a mystery started to unfold, but remember it's a one sentence topic. And then on day one of the camp, dot, 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 flip back to your reader. What happened in day one? On day two of the camp, what happened? Give me one sentence to summarize that day. And then on day three of the camp, which is chapter 4, what we just read. So on day 3 of the camp, what happened? And then your conclusion sentence is going to sound just like your topic overall, and then give me the premise of the book. Overall, our reader is about a mystery involving a missing fossil, something along those lines. And then you're going to find details for day 1, day 2, and day 3. Once you finish it, send me a picture of this SPO. I know I don't write send me a picture next to it, and I'm going to throw extra grower team points onto you as a reward. So if you watch this far, send me a picture of your SPO when you're done, and I'll give you some extra grower team points on the tracker. If you have any questions, go ahead and give me a phone call or a text. In the meantime, scholars, have a great day and be safe. Bye-bye.